We've used this Chinese diesel heater as our secondary heat source in our trailer for going on 2 years now, and while it has been fantastic for the money, it unfortunately still acts like a $100 diesel heater, so sometimes parts fail. The biggest problem that we have is a fuel pump failure, and what happens there is you go to turn the diesel heater on, and you never hear the fuel pump turn on and prime itself. When it turns on, you can hear a distinctive clicking sound from the fuel pump as it gets itself primed and gets diesel to where it needs to go. This never happens and usually is accompanied by an error code on the screen showing here E10, which is not going to pop up because unfortunately there's also several other things going on at their diesel heater. Because we live off-grid, we're not always able to receive Amazon packages or go to the hardware store, go to a store and pick things up. So this is how we fix our diesel heater anytime that we have a fuel pump failure, which has happened several times because they do gum up and they get kind of gross. Keep in mind this is a temporary fix and not an exact fix for a failed fuel pump. If your fuel pump is completely failed, this won't work, but this works 90% of the time for us.
To do this project, you need a can of WD-40, some small bolts. I grabbed multiple sizes so that you can block the fuel line to make sure that no excess diesel comes out when you remove the pump. A small Allen wrench. This is a 1.5 millimeter. And a flathead screwdriver to remove the hose clamp from the pump. So what we're going to do to start is remove your fuse from your diesel heater. If you don't have this connected to a fuse, you should, or turn it off if you have a switch. So make sure you unplug your diesel heater and there's no power going to it. Next step is going to be spraying WD-40 into both the inlet and outlet of your diesel heater fuel pump. You can see on this model it doesn't indicate which way is the inlet or outlet, but the inlet will typically be the opposite side of the connector. Start moving the piston inside. So there's a piston inside of this that travels up and down. You should have it mounted upward at an angle like this. And as you can see, this one is really slow returning, and this has been soaking in WD-40 for a little bit. It was worse when we started. So the goal is to get this to where it snaps back pretty much immediately. So we're going to let this soak for a good 20 minutes with some WD-40, and then we'll come back to it. Well, now that we've let this thing soak for 30 minutes with some WD-40, let's see if we've made any improvement. I'm going to hold this with the outlet downward. The goal is that the piston will travel all the way back up on its own. Let's see if it'll do that. Yep. So as you can see here, it is nice and quick. So now this thing should be good to install again. We're going to go ahead and install it in the diesel heater and see if it clicks. So as you can see, we still have an issue where our temperature sensor is reading that it's still warm. So we'll dive into that next. I believe we need to order a temperature sensor. However, with that being bad, we can still get this thing running, and we'll see if the diesel heater fuel pump kicks on when we get that little light here this time. So the glow plug is warming up. We'll give it a couple minutes and the fuel pump should start to click, and if it starts to click, that means that the pump is working. Okay, so that fuel pump kicked on. As you can hear, our fuel pump is clicking again, which means that this thing should fire up here in a moment. Now this diesel heater needs a rebuild, so it typically takes 2 tries to start it. But in a pinch, if your diesel heater fuel pump has failed, make sure to give this a shot, because it's likely that cleaning the fuel pump will solve the issue that most people have.